So if we are looking at the joke, you should have the answers. You didn't fill in the answers up above to get the joke. That's a problem, because then you probably didn't do it right. So if we are looking at that, I should see the joke on the top, and I should see the work. Meaning that if I was looking at this letter G and I rewrote this problem as plus a positive, because minus a negative becomes a plus, in order to get rid of the positive 16, I need to show a subtraction of 16 on both sides. And then I would put, in this case, x is equal to, and I'd put my solution. Okay? So I should see the multiplication, division, adding, and subtracting throughout. The joke should be filled out at the top if you didn't do that. I don't want you to do it now, but I want you to set this to the side. We're going to fill in our notes. We will probably be handing this in at the end of the period. So set this aside, because then that way I'll be able to see both pages. I'll be able to see D1 and D2. So, D3. On Thursday's class last week, we took a look on Thursday of last week at solving one step. We used the algebra tiles. We're going to be getting into doing our two-step equations today. It says equations are often used in problem-solving situations. We can create an equation that models the problem, and then we solve it to find the solution. We don't know how to, if we don't know how to write and solve difficult equations yet, so here's an example of the more basic ones. And some of these equations, I will tell you, are so basic that you probably would not have to write an equation. But our standard is for this unit that you must write an equation and then solve it. And when we do the writing of the equation, it needs to have a variable in it. So you can't just go, you know, in my head, I know that I take these two numbers and subtract it, or I take these two and multiply or divide or whatever operation. You need to put down and write the equation. So, the fundraising. It says you're participating in a 15-mile walk-a-thon. You walk and run for the same amount of time. You walk at a rate of 4 miles per hour, and you run at a rate of 6 miles per hour. I did not hear that. When we think about walking, do we know how many hours we were walking? So you walk and run the same amount. Your walk rate is 4 miles per hour. We don't know how long we're doing it, but we are running at a rate of 6 miles. So if we are looking at this, we're going to take, we're going to take our rate times time to find the distance. Okay? Now, the rate that we are walking is 4 miles per hour, and we don't know how many hours, how much time, so we're going to put 4h. Plus, if we're running, how fast are we running at? We are running at 6 miles an hour. And what we know is that we had a 15-mile walk-a-thon. So this is like our distance that we walk. This is the distance we run. Because rate times time gives us distance. And our total distance we know was 15, and in this case our distance was in miles. So we have two like terms. We have 4h and 6h, which gives us 10h if we are adding our like terms, plus 15. So we did the adding like terms on our first day when we started this. This is kind of a review of last year. If we are solving this, we're going to divide both sides by 10. And h in this case comes out to be 1.5. So our h is 1.5 hours. We have still not answered the question. How long will it take you to complete the walk-a-thon? So if we have an hour and a half when we're walking and an hour and a half when we are running, should be a total of 3 hours. 1.5 where we're walking, 1.5 where we are running, to get our total of 3. So sometimes the story problems, when you finish with this answer, this is not the answer to the question that they ask, so you need to be kind of careful for that. Okay? As you are taking a look at the top of the next page, it says, these statements that go along the sides of the steps are an explanation for what has to be done to get to the next step. Writing this out is called justifying the steps. You will be asked to justify your steps. So you will be asked to do what's written along here. So it says first thing we want to do is combine like terms. And the other suggestion I would have is anytime you have subtraction, I would go back in the problem and change all subtraction. Please do this right now on your paper to adding the opposite. So one change that I would say is always change so that you do not make mistakes with those negative. Change subtraction to adding the opposite. So if I am now adding my like terms, I have 5x plus a negative 8x. If I add those two together, Layla, I'm going to end up with negative 3x. I'm going to write plus negative 16 equals 23. Grace, next step, I need to get negative 3x all by itself.
We divide.
Careful.
No, we do it.
I want to get rid of this negative 16.
Okay, got this. We subtract. Divide by negative 16.
Okay, so if I take negative 16 and subtract negative 16, that's a common thing that students will do. This would actually give me a negative 32. I don't want negative 32. So instead of subtracting 16, we're actually going to add. So we're going to add 16 on both sides of our equal sign. I still am bringing down this negative 3x, so I need to show that work. I could put a plus 0, but I don't need to write that there. I'm going to have 26 plus 13, which will give me, Bo, how much? 39. I am now up to my one-step problems like we did the other day. So if I'm looking at negative 3x equals 39, the inverse of multiplying by negative 3 is divide. I need to show this step. I'm going to divide both sides by negative 3. And x in this case is going to be equal to a negative 13. So I'm looking at that solution and I think, yeah, I think I did that right. I want you to write check right below this. Because in your homework, I will ask you to check like the odds as you're doing the homework tonight. Okay? So we will start off with, I'm going to write the original equation. So when you do the check, always make sure you write the original. Please put this in your notes so when you look back and you go, I don't know why I did this, you at least have this. When you do the check, you write the original equation. So I put 5x, right, is our original. 5x minus 16 minus 8x was equal to 23. So if I walk by your paper, you have that whole thing written down. Do not have notes. So if we are looking at this, we now are going to put in place of the x, please write in negative 13 and take out your calculator, minus 16 minus 8 times negative 13. And the reason I'm saying your calculator is most of you probably don't know 5 times 13 and 8 times negative 8 times negative 13. So put this whole thing in your calculator. Some of you don't have a calculator yet, some of you aren't typing. Type it in your calculator. Get a calculator, 5 times negative 13 minus 16 minus 8 times negative 13. Get a calculator if you don't have one. When you come in, grab a calculator. Some of you still aren't typing it in your calculator. Type this whole thing in your calculator to tell me and write down what you got and check with your shoulder partner right now. If you did not get 23, you better check with how you are putting this in your calculator. Because negative 13 is the one that works and this is our answer. When you do your check today in your homework, I will look and you wrote down the original, that you plugged it in, and you can show me that these two are equal, okay? Let's take a look at the next problem. The problem that some of you might have been when you put this in, this is a subtraction, and then this is a negative 13. So making sure you know how to put those in your calculator. You should have it on your paper. So, It says, don't forget when distributing that next problem down. A negative number, remember, distributing a negative to each term inside. So the first thing we're going to do before we start using our distributive property, we're going to change subtraction. So please change all subtraction to add the opposite. And what I have found is, even with my students in algebra, that if they do this, they are making less mistakes. Someone said, do I have to do this? No. But when you get it wrong or you're not sure about it, so we're going to make this a -3. I am writing down 10n, and I am distributing. So we're using last week when we started doing this with your 7th grade standards. I am taking a -3 times n, which when I do that, Chloe is going to give me -3 times n, -3n. So you got to keep the sign with it. Next, right, I'm going to take -3 times +1. And I'm going to have a plus a -3 equals -24. Okay. Courtney, if I'm looking at that, I want to add my like terms together. What are my like terms that I can add together? Okay, so I have this 10n and -3n. What do I get when I add those together? Thanks, TJ, I'll give you a shot. 7n plus -3 equals -24. 10 minus 3, we keep the n, right? So when we're adding our like terms, remember that's like 10 plus a -3, and then you're keeping the n. That's how we got 7n. Next step, as I'm looking, Carmen, would be to do what? I want to get 7n by itself. I'm going to add 3. I'm going to do that on both sides of the equal sign. So I had -24 on this side, and now I'm going to add 3 to that. When I add 3 to -24, it's actually like subtracting it. Zach, what am I going to end up with? -21. So it's like subtracting because the signs are opposite. Keep the sign with the negative, okay? Haley, I'm now dividing both sides by 7. What am I going to get for my solution? N equals -3. So showing all the steps is required on your homework and on your tests and quizzes. This is required so that your teacher can see if you're learning the process and meeting the standards. And our standards are not just that can you solve this, but can you justify your steps. And so this is what I would be looking at. So let's do a check. What am I writing down for the check? Tell me, Brayden. I'm going to start with what?
10n.
10n. Minus. Keep going.
Minus minus 3n, right?
Okay. Let's go back to the original. So I've got my parenthesis, right? And put, keep going. N
3n plus 1.
plus 1. And the question is, does it equal -24? So use your calculator, but this time write this down first. Put in 10 times -3. And again, if you want to change this to plus a -3, plus -3 times, you're going to have -3 plus 1, which is really going to give us a -2 here, right? So 10 times -3 plus -3 times -2. I might not even need my calculator for that, right? Because this is -30 plus 6. Is -30 plus 6 equal to -24? Yes, it checks. Okay? So, when we take a quiz and when you do your homework on the odd questions in your homework today, I'm going to look for that you do a check. If you need to go back and look at how we did the check in class, make sure you take a look at that. So, we are now going to do these questions. As we are looking at these problems, we want to start with, our first step is usually adding like terms or distributive property. So when you take a look at the first question here, if we are adding our like terms, Peter, I have 6y plus 3y. How might I write that?
6.
So if I add my like terms, so these two are alike. I want to add those together.
9y.
I'm going to have 9y, and I have a -4 equals -22. Okay? I could change it to plus a negative 4, but in this step, Wyatt, what do I want to do to get 9y by itself?
You gotta add the 4 to both sides.
Add 4. If this was plus a negative 4, you still have to add 4 to get rid of a negative 4, right? So I have 9y at this point is equal to, I should have a negative 22 plus 4, I'm actually subtracting. And TJ, I'll have negative how much? 18. Lizzie, what am I going to do to solve? Divide 9 both sides. Y equals negative 2. The check. Oh, I'm starting to get, so I know that the check means 6 times. Replace the y with negative 2, right? Minus 4 plus 3 times negative 2. Put that in your calculator. What you're trying to see is, does this equal negative 22? When you plug it in, what did you find? Negative 12 minus 4 plus a negative 6. Does it equal negative 22? Correct. What'd you find? It does. It came out to be negative 22. And negative 12 minus 4 minus 6, this does come out to be a negative 22. Our answer is this, what we want to circle. Okay? In this next one, Brett, start us off. We're going to have 1k plus what when you distribute? 15 minus 5k equals 11. I would like you guys to do the problem from there. You can check with your shoulder partner. If I'm looking at this last one, 26, and then Ellie, if I'm going to get rid of my parenthesis, I'd have what?
We would have 1g plus 2.
Careful. Distributing.
So 8g
And we got to be really careful with the sign.
negative
Negative 8g. Okay?
plus
Plus.
negative 16.
Right, because we're taking negative 8 times 2, which gives us a negative 16, and then minus 6g. So, right now what I had 4k plus 15, subtracted, divided by 4, and got, now if I divide negative 4 by 4, should it be 1 or negative 1?
I meant to put negative 1.
Okay, so let's check negative 1. So, if we do the check for negative 1, negative 1 plus, put it in your calculator please, 5 times 3 minus a negative 1, which is actually going to make this 4. So if I have negative 1 plus 5 times 4, is there any way that is going to equal 11? No. And there was a mistake in the problem. And I appreciate you showing, because really it's much better to see someone's mistake than to do it right, because some of you will do this and then you'll get this answer. You go, oh, that looks like such a nice answer. Man, it has to be right. It's an integer. It looks nice. And it is wrong. Can anyone see the mistake that was made? So we go back to the beginning, and for the end, he had negative 1. Negative divided by positive is negative. Okay? So that looks right. 11 minus 4. Should have been minus 4? This should have been a what? Minus 15. Okay, so I agree though, that still gives me a negative 4, right? Okay, so let's keep going up from there. When you add 1 plus negative 5.
Negative 4.
Oh my gosh, it was the first step, the mistake. So let's just go back and correct. This is why you do not want to erase everything. Some of you might have had negative 4 here. What should we then be dividing by? Not by 4, but by negative 4. And then my answer comes out to be 1.
Oh my.
Does 1 work? So when you check 1, 1 works, because 1, if we plug it in, instead of negative 1, 5, and then this back here, remember, was 3 minus 1, we get 2. And 5 times 2, if we are looking at that, if this is a positive 1, is 10, and 10 plus 1 equals 11, and my answer was 1. It is that easy to make the mistake in the first step. And so guys, when you are doing your problem, and you come in and you say, Mrs. Thompson, I don't get this, and can you check this? if you erase all this work because you think you did it wrong, and then really the mistake was in the first step, and all we had to do was go back and change all these to negatives and we got the right answer, I need to see this. Some of you are showing, like you don't like to put this negative 4K down. You just decide, you know what, I'm just going to show this as divide by negative 4 back here. I want to see it on both sides of the equal sign, or you will lose points on that, okay? So I talked to a few of you when I was walking around looking at your work. Let's look at this last one. 26 is equal to, if we are solving this, Thane, what am I going to have when I add my like terms?
You're gonna have 14. You're gonna have negative 14g.
Negative 14g. That is going to be plus a negative 16. Next step, Kayla, is going to be to do what? Careful. The 14 is with the g, and that's what we're trying to get by itself. So if I want to get this by itself, how can I get rid of this negative plus a negative 16? I'm going to add a positive 16. So I add positive 16 to both sides. Okay? We are going to have, when we add that together, 42 is equal to negative 14g. We are going to divide both sides by negative 14. And g equals negative 3. If you go back in here, negative 3 plus 2, that would make that a negative 1. 8 times negative 1 minus 3 times negative 3. So 8 times, if we are looking at that, negative 1, that's going to give me a positive 8. Plus 6 times negative 3 is a positive 18. 8 plus 18, does it equal 26? It checks. So you can do the check in your head too. This is our last one that we're going to take a look at today. When you are looking at this last problem, we want to, as we look at this one, we want to get rid of division. So when you do your homework today, and really the nice thing for you is if we're looking at this homework, you need to make sure you're showing your work. The problems look exactly like the ones we've done. So when we look at this problem, we don't want to deal with fractions. So the first thing we are going to do is we're going to put this down as 6x minus 17 divided by 11. And we are going to multiply on both sides by the denominator, which is 11. And we're going to multiply by 11 over 1. And on this side, we have 5. And we're going to take it times 11. Now, 5 times 11 gives us 55. And on this side, the 11s cancel, which means I am simply going to be left with 6x minus 17. If I'm looking at 6x minus 17, as I look at that, I am now trying to get 6x by itself. What do I have to do to get 6x by itself, David? Add 17. Please do that on both sides of your equal sign. Next step, Daniel, I have 6x is equal to, what'd you get?
6x
Equals what you have? 72. What do we need to do next? To solve. We have 6 times x, so Daniel, you can do what?
Divide 72 by 6.
72 by 6. X is going to be equal to, what do you equal?
12, maybe.
12. I want you to go back to the original problem. And if we look at this original problem and we take 6 times 12 and subtract 17, what do we get? 6 times 12 minus 17. Please put that in your calculator if you're not sure about your multiplication facts. 6 times 12, some of you haven't touched your calculator. You already know if that's equal. 6 times 12 minus 17. What did you get? All right, what'd you have? 55. Is 55 divided by 11 going to be 5? Yes.
Yeah.
So when we are looking at this, because if I divide this by 11, it gives me the solution of 5. I know that x equals 12 is the correct answer. Okay? So on this worksheet, you need to check the odds. I need to see the check. So we're going to take a look at question number 1 and do that one together because you're going to want to erase that or that's going to give you no credit. That would be a 0 for number 1. Same with number 2, number 6 that you have there, okay? So I want to show you what your work is going to look like as you do this problem. We are doing all of it. You have to check the odds, you need to do all, okay? Do all, check odds, okay? So you're going to do all, and you have to check the odds. So we're going to start with number 1, and this is the work I'm looking for. If you don't feel like showing this and just putting an answer, you get no credit. So we're going to start with adding our like terms. So I have 20 plus, if I'm adding G plus G, Sage, how many G's do I have? So 1G plus 1G. I have 2G equals 14. My goal is to get 2G by itself. What do I need to do to get 2G by itself, Carmen? Or not Carmen, sorry. I meant Ellie and I said Carmen, so yes, I agree, subtract 1. We're going to subtract 1. Then, Ellie. 2G equals? Negative 6. Next step that I'm looking at.
Divide by 2.
Divide by 2. I want to show all of this in order to get credit. G is equal to negative 3. I get my solution, I circle my answer. I go back to do the check. What does my check need to look like? The check needs to look like this. 20 plus, so this is my check. 20 plus, what was G? Negative 3. Negative 3 plus negative 3. And the question is, does that equal 14? So, if for some of you there's not enough room to show your work, I think we tried to give you enough room. We have 20 plus negative 6. Is that going to equal 14? It checks. I need to see this. This is what I'm looking for the odds when you do your check. So number 3, you'll have a check next to that one. Next to number 5, you'll have a check. Next to number 7. Next to 9. Next to 11. Okay? On the back, there's 11. Okay? What should I multiply by first in number 11? I want to get rid of this little thing. I do not want a fraction. I'm going to multiply by 4. If I look at number 13, what could I multiply everything in 13 by so that I don't have any decimals? What number could I multiply every single thing by so I have no decimals?
100.
100. Do that. Make this into 600Z plus 36 equals 2472. Some of you will make less mistakes when you don't have decimals. Can you do it with decimals? Yes, it works. Okay. So, make sure if you get started on these, we did number 1. You're going on to number 2. Show your work. Your work needs to look like this.